Hi everyone, welcome back. I'm Di, and today I'm sharing with you another diary entry. So this one is going to be part 2 of my Pride Month reads. I am not sure how much I'm actually going to be able to get read for this particular video, but I have read quite a bit since I talked to you last. So I figured I should come on here and give you an update. So the first book I finished was Hammajang Luck by Makana Yamamoto. This is, it says like Ocean's 8 meets Blade Runner. I'm going to be honest and say I don't think I've watched either two of those movies. I've had interest in Ocean 8, but I don't think I've actually watched it. I don't remember watching it anyway. I remember seeing like the movie trailers for it, but I don't recall actually watching the movie. I would say this is probably more like of things I've watched. Leverage, set on a space station, but the environment of that space station is kind of like Hawaii. So this one follows our main character. They are getting released from prison on parole at the very beginning of this book. They shouldn't be on parole, but whatever luck they had magically got them parole, and they're not going to question it. So they're coming out of parole. It's been like 8 or 9 years. They were pretty much set up by someone they were very close to on a job, which is how they got landed in prison. So they're home for the first time, seeing their sister who is pregnant, raising her kids on her own, and is also in a lot of debt. And so, you know, being a prior convict, it's not the easiest thing to like get a job, right, to help out with the family. And then they get approached by none other than the person who set them up, asking them to work one last job. That job would basically set them for life. And so they decide to go ahead and try for it, one last job. So we kind of follow the formation of the team of the members, the steps that they go through during the grift, all of the different phases, and what the plan was for, the basis of the job, and this, that, and the other thing. So I actually listened to this on audiobook because I heard that the audiobook had a lot of pidgin in it. And if you didn't know, I was born and raised in Hawaii on the island of Oahu. And so I thought it would be more beneficial, probably more entertaining for me to actually listen instead of read it. So I did not have this physical copy when I was reading the book. I listened to the entire thing on audio, and I will say that I felt like I was home. Like, it sounded so much like people that I used to hear every day talking on the street. And it was very kind of comforting to me to hear people talk like that. And they do use quite a lot of slang, I will say. And so I was curious to know, like, if there was a glossary or maybe notations at the bottom of the page to explain what certain things that they were saying meant. Because as someone who doesn't hear it often, someone who didn't like grow up on the islands, I don't know that that person would be able to read it on page, know what they mean just by context, or even be able to like hear what the word sounds like based on how it's spelled, you know? And so I will say that I think the audiobook is probably the better way to go if you are not someone who is familiar with pidgin. That being said, they don't really explain what certain things mean. Like, for example, there's one section in here where one of the characters asks another one of the characters if they stay make. You know, like, it's just something that I know what it means, but I don't think anybody else who didn't grow up there in Hawaii would know what that means. And I haven't heard that phrase in so long. It was just, it just brought back a lot of memories. Several of the characters on the heist team do speak a lot of Pidgin. And so, I don't know, it just was very comforting. It felt like home. A lot of times when I was reading, it didn't even, like, cross my mind that they were on a space station, because every time I pictured things that they were doing, I kind of pictured home. But there are definite things in here which brings you back to that fact that they are on a space station, like the fact that they pay with credits, or, you know, certain ways of traveling, and how, you know, things like airlocks and things like that being in certain areas. So I really enjoyed this. I ended up giving it 4 stars. I obviously picked up a copy for my shelves because I was very curious to see, like I said, how things were spelled, if there was a glossary, if there were notations on page. There are not, but I myself don't need it because I know what those things mean. I know when I read certain phrases how they're pronounced. There's a good amount of diversity in this book amongst the team of sexual identities and gender identities, and I just really enjoyed this. It definitely felt to me like I was watching a long form version of an episode of Leverage, except our characters are more diverse. There's a good diversity in ethnicity as well. So I definitely recommend this one. But like I said, you probably are going to want to listen to it on audio unless you're pretty familiar with Pidgin. But very, very happy that I've read this one. This has been on my radar for a while. And yes, Hammajang luck. Very, very fun and kind of homey feeling kind of story for me. They even talk about like canned luncheon meat. And they have to say canned luncheon meat because they cannot say spam because it's a brand name. But it is very, very much like Hawaii, except on a space station. In fact, I will tell you that I also picked up the author's more recent book, and this is the Obake Code. Obake is the hacker character that's part of the grifter team in Hammajang Luck. And so I'm very, very excited to get into this one as well, and very, very interested to see further things. I think some more of the grifter team is going to be in this one also, but I think I am definitely going to pick up the audiobooks. Obake, the character, is probably the character in the story that speaks the most Pidgin. And I will say that as for the voice that was used for that character, it was a little kind of nail on chalkboard. But she was probably the character that felt the most like a local, for me anyway, other than our main character. And so, yeah, really, really enjoyed that. And I'm looking forward to continuing. It doesn't say that it's a sequel. It says it's another book set in the world of Hammajang Luck. But it follows characters that we've met and have interacted with in Hammajang Luck in this other story. So very, very excited to check that one out. So because I finished Hammajang Luck, I did try another audiobook. And this particular one I found was part of the Audible Plus program. And it's called Treasure Trail. It's the first book in the Treasure Trail series by Morgan Brice, narrated by John Solo. So I'm going to tell you right now that I DNF'd this book at the end of chapter 7. So I think this one follows a psychic medium who works at an antique shop that he's just purchased. And then he ends up sometime during the book crossing paths with an undercover cop. And they have a like romantic line, I guess. But I guess a cursed hotel has like a case with scandals, and I don't know. As far as where I'm at, our two characters had met, but the psychic medium character, his name is Eric. He was not it for me. I really need to like connect with a character in order to enjoy a story, right? And so, especially when we're talking about romantic relationships, I need to be able to want to see that relationship with those characters progress in order for me to enjoy any kind of romantic interaction that they're going to have in the story. Now, like I said, I've stopped at the end of chapter 7, and by that time, our main character, all he could think about was sex. He was very, very horny, and I ended up stopping reading the book because the last thing he said was, "I wonder if he's cut or uncut." And that did it for me. I did not enjoy all the things he was saying. I did not enjoy him thinking about sex all the time. I didn't enjoy him as a character, and I really didn't care if this guy got into a relationship with the other guy at all. He just was not interesting to me. I was really kind of irritated listening to it. I spent 2 lunch times listening to this audiobook, and it's just unfortunate because I thought this was going to be like right down my alley with the whole like kind of paranormal, supernatural kind of angle with the detective mystery and things like that. Kind of be on the same line of A Ghost of Lies, which is the book that I read in the previous installment of my Pride Month reads. And so, yeah, I had no interest in continuing, and so I DNF'd it. So it took me a little bit of time to finally decide what I was going to read after that. I did finally decide on something, but I'm not even close to finishing that book yet, so I'm not going to talk to you about it now. I am going to throw in a couple of things that don't quite fit this theme, though, because I am having a really hard time with the themes and fitting in things that don't fit the theme of the diary entry that I'm talking about. And so, like, in May, I didn't even talk about the manga club reads. This month's manga club reads, it is still June as I'm filming this video. They do match the theme. However, I normally don't talk about my thoughts on the Monochrome Manga Club selections except for the series reads, because I do a dedicated series first impressions video on the first in a series selections. So I will tell you that I just finished filming the Monochrome Manga Club series first impressions video on My Summer of You Volume 1 by Nagisa Furuya. This one's published by Kodansha, rated older teen, which is a boy's love. And then Volume 1 of The Moon on a Rainy Night by Kuzushiro. This one is also published by Kodansha, rated older teen. So if you're interested in hearing my thoughts on both of these, this one's a girl's love. Like I said, this one's a boy's love. I will link my first impressions video for you in the cards here, so you can see what I thought. But I will tell you very briefly that I enjoyed both of these, and I'm looking forward to continuing with both of them. As far as the things that don't actually fit this month's theme, I'm going to tell you what I thought of Land of the Lustrous. This is Volume 5. I forgot to bring Volume 4, which is what I read in May. but I didn't talk to you about it because it didn't fit any of the themes. In any case, volumes 4 and 5 of Land of the Illustrious by Haruko Ichikawa, published by Kodansha Rated Teen. So this is that story about our gem-like creatures who are constantly battling these creatures from another planet, I think. It's kind of weird. But they come from somewhere else, and they're called Lunarians. And so they're consistently battling with these Lunarians. And the Lunarians basically come and take any lustrous, who are gem-like creatures, that they can, and then they create things with them. So we follow the story through the eyes of Foss, who is this character here. And at the beginning of the story, they are very much a fragile creature because the characters of the lustrous are very similar to the characteristics of the gemstones that they are. And so with Foss, their gemstone is very fragile. And because they're very fragile, they are prevented from fighting the Lunarians. But that's all Foss really wants to do. So as Foss is trying to find other things to do instead of fighting, we kind of follow them, getting to know more of their comrades, learning more about their abilities. And we, as readers, learn more about the characteristics of the gemstones through Foss's interactions with their comrades and things like that. It's really, really interesting. But at this point of the story, Foss is kind of wondering if they can communicate with the Lunarians, which is something that I'm finding very fascinating. And there's a couple of other questions that are come about in this particular volume. We met yet another one of the comrades that's not around very often, and you find out why. So it's just a really interesting story. I will tell you that when I first started reading this series the very first time, I had a really, really difficult time because it is black and white, and I had a hard time distinguishing the characters from each other. Because they're gemstones too, you lose all of the interesting color characteristics of the characters. So you really need to be able to distinguish them based on pretty much just their hairdo. Because even their outfits are kind of similar. But the hairdo is probably the thing that is most unique between characters, because even some of the facial features are similar between some of the characters. And so yeah, at this point though, I'm not having that issue, which is great. And I'm really, really enjoying this series. So if you haven't read Land of the Illustrious, I highly recommend it. I'm really looking forward to continuing this one with the members. And so yes, this, I would probably say this is the series that I've enjoy more of the two series that we're reading. So that being said, I'm going to tell you my thoughts on volumes 12, 13, 14, and 15 of Dr. Stone. So Dr. Stone, this one is by Riichiro Inagaki with art by Boichi. This one's published by Viz, Rated Teen. We are reading this one on the Shonen Jump app, which is why I don't have volumes. And truthfully, I personally don't think that I'm going to be investing in purchasing volumes of this series. My daughter might be a different story, but I personally don't have enough of a pull to this story to want to own volumes. I do have a subscription to the Shonen Jump app, and for me, that's enough if I wanted to go back and reread it, which I don't think at this point that I would. But we've got like half of the series left. So I've got like half of the series to change my mind. I will say, as I'm reading more of this series, right now where we are, these last 4 volumes are definitely more interesting to me than the previous volumes have been. So this is a very much science-based story where we're following these high school kids. One day the world gets covered, or I wouldn't say gets covered, but everything in it turns to stone. Every person, every building, every tree, creature, animal, everything turns into stone. And then many, many years later, some of our characters start emerging from the stone. And I'm talking like thousands of years. And so we kind of follow them kind of recreating society, fending for themselves, creating homes, catching their own food, cooking with no modern appliances, basically back to like Stone Age. And then we've got this one character whose name is Senku, and he's very, very science smart. So he's like the kind of the catalyst for the progress of society. So he's the one that recreates things to kind of help elevate the like living or livability of society, or the people that have awoken and emerged from the stone. And so we start like really small with very few characters, and then the world kind of expands and expands. We get more and more characters, and adventures happen, pilgrimages. And so right now it's very kind of adventure feeling because they're on like a kind of adventure. Some of our characters have set off on sea, and so it kind of talks to you about how they're traveling on sea, how they got to the point where they were able to travel on sea. And then it's kind of talking about a way that things could have turned to stone, I guess I will say, without being spoilery. But I think for me at this part in the story, the reason that I'm enjoying it more than previous is because even though we're still having a lot of science-y explanation when they're creating things, it's not as much. Like, I feel like the amount of the science-y talk is less than the talk where we're having like people kind of trying to figure out how to fight the baddies in this area, and kind of rescuing certain characters that we've come to know and love. And at this point, we know quite a few characters that we've seen for a while, and some of them get into trouble. And so a lot of that is a lot more interesting to me rather than the really science heavy, this is why this works, this formula is for this, so this chemical reaction will cause this. That doesn't really interest me, but the people aspect of the story does. And I do enjoy the art style as well. But there's a lot of action. There's kind of a lot of fighting as well. There's a bad guy that you just want to like kick his butt, and he's kind of gross and disgusting. And so yeah, I really enjoyed these 4 volumes. I'm looking forward to seeing what happens in the next few, because obviously our team of people that we're following right now have to meet back up with the other characters at some point. Or maybe we'll check in with those other characters and see what they're up to. But for right now, I am quite enjoying what's going on in the story. So that is actually pretty, I should say, that it's kind of more of a relief type feel for me, because I thought, I was going to read this to the end, because I really, really wasn't enjoying it. I mean, I think up until this point, Dr. Stone was getting 3 stars from me. But these last few volumes, volumes 14 and 15, got 4 stars out of me. So it's going in the right direction. And I'm looking forward to, like I said, seeing what happens in the next couple. So I think that's pretty much all I've read up to now. I am listening to another audiobook, and it's going okay. And I actually have 3 more volumes of manga to talk to you about. And at that, I forgot to talk to you about it because I put Obake Code and Hammajang Look on top of it. So I actually have read a little bit more manga. So I did my annual reread of Our Dining Table, and I saw that I've actually missed last year of rereading this. But I know I talked about it. It was part of a collab video that I did, and this was my recommendation. But I didn't reread it to do that little snippet, so I guess I didn't read it at all because it wasn't marked on my Goodreads. But this is Our Dining Table. It is one that I strive to reread every year because I really, really enjoy it. This is by Mita Ori, published by 7 Seas, rated teen. So this is a story about our characters here on the cover. So this guy here, his name is Yutaka, and he doesn't enjoy eating around people. Mostly for the fact that he's heard negative things about himself throughout his life, saying basically that he's no fun to eat around. So he prefers to eat on his own. He usually makes an onigiri. And his onigiri are like little bombs, like they're like this big, right? And he'll go to the convenience store and pick up a couple of other things to kind of round out his meal. And then he'll take his meal to the park and have a chow down. One day when he gets to the park, he comes across a little boy. And the little boy, he starts talking to him. And he's like, oh, I'm here waiting for my brother. But of course, the little boy sees his onigiri and immediately is hungry. And so he ends up sharing his onigiri with the little boy. In comes the little boy's brother, whose name is Minoru. And the little boy, whose name is Tane, tells Yutaka that he'd like him to teach his older brother to make onigiri like him because his brother's onigiri is like basically sucks. And so Yutaka is like really kind of flustered at this point, but he's kind of enamored with the little boy, so he agrees to go over to their house one day and teach them how to make onigiri like he does. And so this starts off kind of these meals together where he goes over to Minoru and Tane's house and teaches them how to cook things. And he starts having more and more meals with them. And then the feelings start to arise, right, between our 2 older male characters. And so it's just a really, really sweet story. Tane is just adorable. Lots of good food, delectable looking items. There's a lot of heart to this story because you see Yutaka and his, like, how he grew up, why he is the way he is, why he's got the mindset he has right now. And then you see the family story of Minoru and Tane, and you get to meet their dad, and you find out about their family situation as well. And so lots of heart, lots of good food, very, very sweet, clean boys love romance. And I highly recommend this one if you don't know where to start with boys love. Just a very, very sweet story. And so I really, really love this one. Obviously, it's 5 stars. And then recently, since the end of 2025, we were given these 2. So this is Our Dining Table Seconds Please Volume 1 and Our Dining Table Seconds Please Volume 2. So this is like continuing story with our characters. You can see Tane has grown up a little bit. And so we follow a continuing story of the relationship between Minoru and Yutaka. And of course, with inserts of Tane and his father. Just a really, really sweet story again. I'm loving more time with these characters. These are actually rated teen, 13 plus. I would say these have a little bit more than kissing in this one, in these two. So while I would say this is probably more leaning on the G side, general audiences, this is probably leaning more PG 13 a little bit, though it's still very clean, I would say. You don't see like very much, but you can see that there is a progression in the relationship between Minoru and Yutaka. And so I really, really am loving their story and can't get enough. So I do hope this trend doesn't continue, though, because you can see how thick this volume is. In fact, let me bring this one up too. So these are the spines. So volume 1 is just a little bit thicker than the original, right? And volume 2 is thinner. So I hope as this series continues, it doesn't get smaller and smaller, because I really, really love these characters and highly recommend this series. So really, really enjoyable. I gave them all 5 stars. You'll probably see me do a lot more rereads of favorite BL manga that I usually try to read every year come this time. And so yeah, that's kind of what I'm working on in these final days of June. But that's pretty much all I have for you today. And yeah, I'll be back with you for the rest of my June reads in a little bit. Hello. So I have come here today to wrap up my Pride Month reads with you, but I've decided that this video is only going to be the novels that I have finished for the rest of Pride Month, and that I'm going to go ahead and put all of the manga in a separate video. It seems like, based on my views, that people who are watching the videos that I have are not necessarily interested in the novels I'm reading if they're here for manga, and vice versa. So to keep the videos on the shorter side, I'm going to go ahead and keep the manga and the novels separate. I used to do this very early on in my YouTube channel history, which at this point is like 10.5 years ago. And I think I'm going to start doing it again. It just makes sense to me to do it, even though it's a little bit more work. But, you know, I'm trying to make a few little changes here and there to try to get my views back up, because right now my views are in the tank. And so that's what I'm doing. So I'm just going to have the novels that I finished reading in the month of June here. And so I have 2 more books to talk to you about. The first book I'm going to talk to you about is called Boyfriend Material. It's the first book in the London Calling series by Alexis Hall. So basically, this is a fake dating book, male. I've come to realize that fake dating is definitely a trope I enjoy reading about as far as the romance genre goes. And so this one follows a guy who has rock star parents. They split when he was younger. And he's really not had a relationship with his father. But his father hasn't made music in a long time. And he is now starting to come back, or make a comeback. And suddenly our main character, his name is Luke, is finding himself being scrutinized in public. And he has an unfortunate incident occur where a photograph of him is published that doesn't paint him in a very good light. But in his day job, they're like trying to throw this charity fundraiser, and so he needs to clean up his act a little bit. So what better than to find someone to be his date to this charity fundraiser and kind of be his, you know, boyfriend for all intents and purposes, that has a very clean image, someone that no one can find fault with, and someone who is the perfect boyfriend material. So that person ends up being a guy named Oliver. He is a barrister and has a very squeaky clean image and is perfect. It just turns out that Oliver also has a need of a date for a big event of his own. And so we follow the two of them in this kind of fake dating arrangement, and obviously feelings happen and things like that. I did not realize that this was the first book in a series, but I had put this one on my radar a long time ago. And I think at that point, I'm pretty sure that it was a standalone novel at the time. Like I said, this was years ago. And so I finally decided to go ahead and read it because, like I said, I've just recently realized that I really enjoy fake dating, and this obviously has fake dating in it. So I did listen to this one entirely on audio, and I will say I did enjoy the narration. However, I did not really enjoy Luke's character. I found him to be very childish, a bit irritating. Some of the little, like, blow-ups that he had during the story, I just shook my head, and I don't understand, like, what was going through his mind when he was having these, like, extreme reactions to things. And he just wasn't a likable character. And that being said, there's this also story part of his relationship with his parents. And I didn't enjoy that at all either, because let's just say that his father reminded myself a lot of my own father. and a lot of the issues that I have with my own father, and just the way his father acted towards Luke, I didn't enjoy that. So Luke's character in itself, on top with the way Luke's dad was acting, on top of how Luke's mom kept trying to get him to kind of patch up his relationship with his father, I just didn't enjoy all of that. The dating portions of it definitely had its cute moments. I really enjoyed Oliver as a character. I thought Oliver could have done better, to be honest. I'm not convinced that, Luke is it for him, but you can definitely see how Oliver feels about Luke. Very early on, I could see it. And it just made him a more likable character in my eyes. The way he acted, the way he stood up for Luke, and just that compared to how Luke acted in regards to Oliver and his feelings just was so much of a better experience for me. So I did enjoy this one overall. I ended up giving it a 3.5. But I'm not going to be continuing with this series. I wasn't convinced enough of the relationship. Like I said, I thought Luke wasn't a very likable character, and I thought Oliver could have done better. So there are two more books in this series, and I don't feel the need to want to continue on with their story. Even though I did really enjoy Oliver, I just don't feel that need to continue. So I will be stopping here. And like I said, I enjoyed, for the most part, this installment, and I'm glad that I finally read it. I probably will definitely check out something else from this author in the future, because I did enjoy their writing style. And I think that's pretty much all I have to say about that one. So, really happy that I finally got to that one. It had been on my radar for a really long time, and so I'm glad that I finally read it. Now, the second book, or I should say the third book, because it's the third book for this diary entry, is a book that I actually DNF'd. So this is the first book in a cozy mystery series. It's the first book in the Board Game Shop series by C.J. Connor. And this one follows an owner of a board game shop. It's kind of a family-owned shop. His father is really sick, and so he's been giving caregiving duties on top of running the family shop. And the shop is a shop that specializes in board games. And so it kind of talks about how, big box stores like Amazon and Walmart have been hurting their sales. The fact that people think that they're a niche type shop, that they wouldn't have like the newer games. And so they end up defaulting their purchases to these bigger shops, and kind of the money struggles that they're having because of the flow of business and things like that. This guy is also fresh off of a divorce. He is gay, and so he's struggling with all of the emotions with that, and the impact on his mental health as well. When one day a guy comes into their shop with a really great offer to want to sell a very rare type of board game to our board shop owner's business at I think it was a 10th of the value of what it's worth today. But our board game shop owner, I should tell you his name. His name is Ben. He thinks it sounds suspicious. Why would you sell something that valuable for so little, right? And so he ends up turning down the offer. But, of course, later on, the seller is found dead at the dumpster behind his shop, and it seems like he's being framed for the murder. So we follow our board game shop owner trying to figure out who the culprit actually was. Very, very classic, cozy mystery setup. I listened to 72% of this book before I decided to DNF it. So it just wasn't grabbing me. There was nothing about this story that grabbed my interest. At first, the premise is really interesting because I've never actually seen a board game shop, though honestly, I haven't actually looked for a board game shop. There's probably one around, but I've just never looked for one. I haven't really played board games very much in my life, I would say. When I was a kid, board games were definitely something we played more of, and there were more people in my family to play board games with at the time because I have 2 other siblings plus my mother, so we could get a really good, robust game going, right? And now, it's my mom and my daughter and myself, and my mom is usually working when I'm off, and I'm usually working when she's off, and there's just not time to just sit down and do a board game instead of enjoying some TV. So, but it was interesting to hear about how a business like that would be run. And the struggles are very similar to struggles like an independent bookstore would have. But our main character just seemed a little whiny. And you know me, I don't like whiny characters. And it just wasn't mysterious enough of a story where I am even like wondering who it could have been. It even like had the tone of a more contemporary, like slice of life type story instead of a mystery. It didn't have that pull or that edge that I like in my mysteries. Even with cozies, it is a softer type of mystery. However, usually in the cozies that I like, there is a little bit of an edge there. There's a want for me to solve the mystery with our amateur sleuth and experience this journey with them. And I just wasn't feeling any of that with this one. I was just kind of sitting down during lunch one day wondering, what the heck am I doing? Like, I was just passively listening to it and not really caring about what was going on in the book. So even though it probably would have taken me one full lunchtime later to finish this book, I decided to go ahead and call it quits at 72%. And truthfully, I'm not really interested in who the killer was. As far as I know, this series also has not had any other installments in it. There is a budding romance between our main character and someone else in the story. And truthfully, I did find the love interest to be a more entertaining character than our main character of this series. So that too was disappointing because when I'm starting series, when I'm getting into romance novels, I really want to have that pull to root for our main character. And if I don't have that, I've got to have a pull for something else in the story, whether that be wanting to find out who the killer was or what the motive was behind the murder. Something, the business or other characters. And I just don't have that with this story. So, truthfully, I should have stopped after the first session with this book, which put me at like the 36% mark of this book. And that's past what I would normally give. But I thought, I wasn't feeling too encumbered. Is that the word? By listening to this book. It was just not affecting me at all. And so, against my better judgment, I should have stopped after that first session. But I went ahead and listened for another lunch period, and I just wasn't feeling anything. So I think it was a good idea for me to stop. And so, yeah, unfortunately, that's where my Pride Month reads is going to end. Overall, I did really enjoy the books that I read during the month of June, and I always strive to not only read LGBTQIA plus type books during the month of June, but throughout the year. So I did start another book, kind kind of earlier in June, but I am only a few chapters in, and truthfully, I've got all of these library holds that came in, and so I don't know when I'm going to be able to get back to that book. Overall, it was a really good reading month. I do typically read a lot more in June because I do typically read a lot more manga titles in June as well. So like I said before, I will be talking about the manga that I read at the end of June in another video, but I'm very happy with all of the reads that I have been able to accomplish in June. And as per all of my diary entries this year, I'm going to end this with an Advent opening, and I do have an extra yarn purchase to share with you, which kind of goes with the Advent calendar. So with my new kind of novels and mangas being separated in separate videos, probably from here on out, I'm going to say that the yarny stuff I'm going to leave in the diary entries that have to do with novels. And in fact, I'm probably going to name the manga videos something else. They're not going to be the diary entries. So Advent calendar openings will be in diary entries. And probably the arcade footage as well, if I have any to share. But manga stuff will stay in manga videos. I think that's how it's going to be going forward. In any case. Let's go ahead and open up the yarn Advent calendar. So this is the Charlie Brown Christmas inspired yarn Advent calendar from Stitchin' with Yarn. We are up to packet 13. This was the yarn Advent calendar I had purchased at in the middle of 2025 for the end of 2025. And so all of these colorways are inspired by the movie A Charlie Brown Christmas. And so this mini skein is called We Need a Christmas Tree. So let's see what we've got. You know what? This kind of goes with the other purchase that I have made. It definitely has, the greens of the Christmas. It's got lots of purple and some blue in it. It's kind of funny that I'm opening this up now. So let's go ahead and talk about my other yarn purchase. So if you've been following these diary entries, you know that I've been also purchasing the sock clubs, it's not really a sock club, but it's a yarn club from this dyer, Stitchin' with Yarn, who decided to do a year-long Peanuts yarn club. So every month she dyes a skein or colorway that's inspired by a Peanuts character. And so I don't purchase them every month, but I do purchase them most months. And so the character for the month of June was my favorite, inspired by my favorite Peanuts character. So I had to purchase it, and it has come in. So I was planning on sharing that with you today. So I'll go ahead and do that now. But remember what this color looks like, because the colorway for the character that I purchased for is Schroeder. And if you didn't know, my favorite character from Peanuts is Schroeder. Particularly when he's wearing his turquoise and black striped shirt. However, in more recent years, he's been shown more and more and more with a purple and black striped shirt. Purple is not my favorite color. It's probably one of my least liked colors. However, when I saw that she had a colorway inspired by Schroeder, even though I know what I'm purchasing when I purchase it, I can see what the skein looks like when I go in and purchase. And it wasn't my favorite combo. I still had to purchase it because Schroeder is my favorite. So my Schroeder skein looks like this. So it's got the kind of inspiration of the more like purpley tones of his shirt with the black of the stripes in his shirt. and maybe reminiscent of piano keys, right? It's got a little bit of white here. Again, like piano keys, because he is the piano player. Yellow for his hair and things like that. I always purchase the sock set. So it gives you a bunch of different options on how you can purchase. And I always get the sock set. So I get the skein, 100 grams, and the mini skein, which is 20 grams. And so this is the sock set I picked up. And because the very first set that she offered had 2 mini skeins in it, I have been continuing to pick up an additional mini skein. I do find that with the mini skeins, when I'm doing socks, I usually do 1 pair for myself and 1 for my daughter out of 1 sock set. I do find that I run out of the mini skein when I'm doing that kind of combo for myself and my daughter. And so I thought, oh, you know, having a second mini skein would be helpful, because then we can both have coordinating heels, toes, and cuffs if we want it. And so I went ahead and purchased this mini skein to go with the sock set. So the mini skein that comes with the sock set is actually specially dyed for the colorway. And so even though this looks very similar, there is a slight difference in the color. In real life, this does look a little bit lighter. But it's still kind of the same tones, and I think it'll go really, really well with this. So this one is called Blueberry. And I don't think this is actually called anything. When you buy it for the sock set, it just comes with a coordinating mini. But yes, Schroeder. So this is what I got for my sock set. And this was today's mini skein. So they kind of all go together. Which is fine. I mean, this kind of reminds me of Ursula a little bit, if I'm being honest. But again, we had another like skein that kind of reminded me of Flounder, right, earlier. So not really Christmassy, if I'm honest, but still a really, really nice skein. So again, still excited to see all of the skeins once I open them up all together. But yes, very, very happy with my purchases so far from Stitchin' with Yarn. I do know that the character for the month of July is Marcy, and I think I am going to go ahead and pick that one up. And so, yeah, it's very, very colorful though. And so, to me, it doesn't really evoke Marcy per se, but I think it's going to be a really, really nice skein to have. And so I'm excited to go ahead and make that purchase. And so that is the Yarn Advent Calendar and my yarn, additional Yarny purchase. And then we have one more Advent, and that is the Nido, upside down, Nido Advent. So I've been opening these as well. We are on number 13, which is right here. Okay, so it's kind of one of the bigger ones. Let's see what we got in here. Oops. That says Footloose. You can see there is a foot in there. It is a solid, it's very solid, hard rubber foot. This is like one of those things that you need to squish when you're having really, really bad days. So a lot smaller considering the size of the box, but yes, Footloose. So I mangled that cover, but hopefully that'll just stay in there like that. So that was day 13. So far, still really enjoying that. There's just a variety of things in there. And truthfully, I'm surprised every time because I'm not really familiar with the Nido product, other than, you know, their kind of squishy stress ball types. I do enjoy them, but like I said the last time, I find that I am very much someone who squeezes a little bit too hard. And so I think for me, these are nice, but if I'm really stressed, they're not the best option, because like I said, I've exploded one already just by squeezing, or two, because this one has also exploded, and this is the one with the liquid inside. So I try not to squish this one since it does leak now. But yeah, very, very happy with those. And as far as life updates goes, I've been having a little bit of a tough time. Truthfully, my dad's birthday was this week, and you know how I was talking to you about, you know, boyfriend material and his relationship with his dad. Every once in a while, more often than not, I should say, not every once in a while, I have a really hard time when it comes to my dad. And you know this if you've been with me for a while and you've watched some of my other diary entries, especially ones when I'm at home in Hawaii or he comes for a visit. It's just, talking with him sometimes puts me in a bad place. And so his birthday was this week, and I did my duty and I called to wish him a happy birthday. And it was not more clear to me during our conversation that he just doesn't care about me, that he doesn't even know how old I am, and like realize like things that he's saying. So like during our conversation or whatever, he was talking about the fact that he's enjoying being retired and all of that, and how, you know, in 5 years you'll also be retired. And I'm thinking, Dad, you know, how old do you think I am? Like, even like think it back, like if I'm gonna be retirement age and you are however many years old you are, I'm not gonna say it on here, I do know, but you know, I'm just not gonna share that. You know, think back, like if I'm retirement age in 5 years, how old were you when you had me? Right? I mean, yeah. So it's just, you know, and I tried to tell him, you know, I have like more than 5 years, like 20 plus years. And he just like talked right over me. And it's just like he just doesn't get it. I don't know. He doesn't care to get it, or he just doesn't care. And so sometimes, especially when I have conversations like this with him, it puts me in a bad place. And I'm not gonna lie, I've been in a bad place since that particular conversation. So you might have noticed that I've started kind of talking about getting arcs again, and you know, I've kind of am trying to do some different things with my channel, right? Because my views are down, so I'm trying to do what I can to fix that. And on top of me feeling, you know, bad about myself, right? I got a couple of declinations for ARC requests that I put in, and it just put me even more of a bad place, because they don't tell you why they're declining. They just send a decline and that's it. And normally if I'm in a good place, it's okay, I just let it roll off my back. But because I'm in this bad place with what happened with my dad, it just put me in an even worse place. And then I'm starting to like wonder if my channel's suffering because of my looks, you know, if I should just turn into a faceless channel. And it's just putting all of these bad kind of thoughts in my head, and it's just not been a really good time. On top of the fact that it's been hot this past week, so we're finally like setting into summer temperatures here, and Summer is always a really bad time for me because I get physically sick when it's so hot. And so it's just kind of all compounding right now. It'll take a little bit of time to kind of get out of this funk. But I just kept wondering yesterday, like, why is everything affecting me so much? Because I'm normally not really, like, in a bad place for a long time. And I track it back to that conversation I had with my dad. So, yeah, it's just one of those things. And I feel like people don't talk about it enough when they're struggling. And, you know, we only put good things out on the internet, right? And, you know, I think we should talk about things more. It definitely helps me to talk about it because I feel like even if I told my dad straight to his face, you know, certain things, how I'm feeling about how he treats me, or how he doesn't care about me, you know, being his firstborn kid, that he wouldn't care. And there are just things that have happened along my life with him that kind of make me regret rekindling my relationship with him when I was in my early 20s. Or, yeah, not quite 20, but yeah, it's something that I deal with from time to time. And, you know, being Asian is another thing, right? You gotta respect your elders and do all of this stuff, and they can just treat you however badly they want to. And I think the older I get, just having the years upon years upon years of it compounding is just making it harder for me to function well and not have it affect my mental health. And so, yeah, it'll get better. It will get better. But right now, it's really fresh. And I'm really, because it just happened a couple of days ago. And so I'm just kind of trying to work through it. And that with, you know, all of the thoughts I'm having about my channel not performing well, and if it's even worth it for me to get all aggravated because of it. But in honesty, I enjoy talking about what I'm reading, what I'm buying, you know, sharing my love of collecting yarn at this point, because I'm not knitting right now, which is another thing. I'm just collecting yarn. And yarn is very much like books, you know. It's two separate hobbies. You buy books, or you collect books, and you read books. Those are two hobbies. So it's the same way with yarn for me. I collect yarn and I knit yarn sometimes. I haven't in a long time, but it'll eventually come back to me. And I'll want to do it again. I know I will, because I've always been a crafter and a reader. And it's just the timing right now. Like, at this time in my life right now. And I just got to work through it. So, with that being said, I don't want to leave on a downer note, but I don't have anything else to talk to you about. So, like I said, there will be the rest of the manga that I read in a separate video. I'm going to try to see if separating the content will help without having to create yet another channel to put stuff on. I just don't know what to do at this point. And so if you have any ideas for me, let me know. I'm really like trying to learn the tips and tricks as well to just try to get my views not past where I was, but even just back up to where it was, because single digit views right now, it's kind of hurting, you know, my mental health a little bit. But like I said, as long as I can talk it out with you, I think it does definitely help. So let me know down in the comments below what you've read during the month of June, what you're currently reading. Have you been up to anything fun? What was your most favorite read in the month of June? I would love to know. I don't know what my favorite read was at this point. I know I reread a lot, which I'm going to talk to you about in the manga video, and a lot of those were favorite reads, but they were rereads, so I don't think that really counts. You know, I think it's a toss-up between the Criminal Intentions and the Ghost of Lies book, because I really enjoy the Criminal Intentions series on a whole, so I really look forward to every time I can read another installment of that. But the Ghost of Lies was new for me, like new characters, new world, new like story, and so that really got my interest up. And so I think between those two books, those are probably my two favorites of my June reads. But let me know what yours was down in the comments below, or if you have any suggestions for Pride Month type reads that you think I might enjoy. I would love to hear about those as well, especially if they're sapphic recommendations, because I feel like I read a lot of male or boys love, but I don't read a lot of girls love or GL. And so if you have any other types of reads, even like aromantic or asexual or any of the other identities that we spotlight during the month, definitely put them in the comments below. And if nothing else, and you'd just like to let me know that you were here, if you could leave me your favorite color heart emoji down in the comments, it would be greatly appreciated and would really help me out. That will do it for me today, so I hope you're all doing great. I hope you're all safe and healthy, and until next time, take care and smile always. Bye.